Alright, so it's like almost 4 a.m., which is why I am not shouting like I normally do. And I just finished watching Halloween Ends. And I have to say, of course, as always, I go into spoilers a little later. I did enjoy this a lot more than the second movie. Initially, going through this movie, I was like, oh god, I don't think I like this. But in the last third, it kind of like wrapped it all up for me and all that stuff. And so, uh, yeah. Still of the three, the 2018, oh god, excuse me, is my favorite. The third one, and then the second one. Um, the Not spoilers. This movie takes place during current times, whereas the second movie is like right after the first movie. But this one is, you know, right now during this time, the 4 year, gap in between. Um, and then it's just kind of like how life is now, yada yada, going on with it. I love how this movie was shot. It was, this the same people who shot the other two movies. Um, yeah, I think because the second movie, when they were tying back elements about like, when they were doing kind of like flashback sequences, and they kind of made it look kind of old and stuff. So with this one, whenever they would talk about, previous stuff, they kind of went back to that way of filming, a little bit more grain to the footage, like the feel of it and all that stuff. So again, I do enjoy this movie. Again, I can't really say much to go into spoilers. Um, ugh. Anyway, so spoilers, one, two, three spoilers. Um, so yeah, uh, this movie has a lot of like, callbacks. Of course, it has a lot of callbacks. Whereas obviously in the other two movies, there's obviously callbacks. Um, so in this one initially, what got me like annoyed is this, like I said, this movie is current times. It's a few years after the last movie, and it first starts off as Halloween 2019, and it shows like this guy, he's babysitting this kid, and like sure, the mom is like, hey, this kid, ever since, Michael Myers came back, and pretty much saying like all that crazy stuff that was happening in the second movie, the kid is having nightmares, having trouble sleeping, wetting the bed, and the babysitter guy is like, all right, I'll figure this out. And so the little kid at first is just being like a normal weird little kid, but then they're like, oh, let's watch The Thing, and the little kid like starts being, a little kid starts being like a little shit, and the kid is just the babysitter guy. He says he's 21, like he's just trying to like make some extra scratch, and just trying to take care of this kid, and so this kid's parents could like have a great night and all that stuff. And then the little kid, like I said, starts being a little shit, and then you start assuming it's Michael Myers, and I knew it wasn't. I knew it was the little kid being a little shit doing this. And so pretty much the little kid like lures, like I said, it's 4 a.m., lures the babysitter guy to the attic, locks him in there, and is like, you're scared, you're scared, you're scared, aren't you scared? And then like the guy is just kind of like, all right, no, like let me out. It's not funny. Like I'm not scared, but like Jesus Christ, like stop being a little shit. Well, the kid's parents came back to the house for some reason or whatever, and of course, like where the attic door is, and then it's like a little bit of space, but then the house, this like upper middle class fucking, um, what's the word I'm looking for? Affluent house is like, well, like several floors up, and so like there's like a banister and then a little bit of space, and then the door's there. So the dude's kicking, and mind you, when the kid was being a little shit, I was like, God, I hope this kid dies. Well, the dude kicks the door, knocks the kid. The kid goes over the banister, falls down, and just whoop-ah, like cracks his neck, blood everywhere, and then, title credits. And I was like, oh my god, yes, like, yes, yes, you know, like, I was, like, all excited. But then it gets to, like, me being like, oh, fuck. So, the babysitter guy, of course, gets accused of murder, but he's innocent, and they let him go, and all that stuff, because it was an accident. It was an accident. Um, but my problem is that, so, of course, his character, you know, like, he's a nice guy, but because of, like, how the town reacted to him, you know, he starts to kind of, like, view things differently, you know? And what annoyed me is that once him and, like, the Laurie Strode's granddaughter meet, it's like, this part got me annoyed because it became literally like the whole love at first sight thing, because like they meet each other because she's like a nurse at the hospital and she immediately sees him, she's like that kind of stuff, and it's like, really, like, are you serious? Like, you literally just met this guy, he's like a fucking mess, and he's got a cut on his hand, and you're like, you know, like that. And it's like, girl, come on, like, Jesus Christ. And like, on one hand, it's like, I'm glad that like the love interest is kind of like a normal kind of dorky looking guy, and not like a, wow, that's like a dude they hire for any like Netflix, you know, original thing where it's like, that's a love interest, no shit, you know, that kind of stuff. So they like, they like fall in love, and then like they like, but like their relationship seems like so, like, in such a short time, it's like they've known each other forever. And then I was like, my brain was trying to be like, well, maybe they previously met and then they're just getting back together. It's like, no, brain, stop trying to be, stop doing that. They literally, like, this is like the worst comparison, but this reminds me of the last Airbender movie, where like the two characters are supposed to like know each other from the cartoon, and obviously it takes a long time for them to like get together and know each other, but like the moment they meet each other, it's like, we're in love, you know. And that's what made me think of it. I was just like, this is so, it's so quick. It's like, oh my god, you're different and I'm different. Like, you've been through trauma, I've been through trauma, we love each other. And it's like, oh, it was like, okay, okay, oh, okay, okay, calm it down, calm it down. And then, um, yeah, so because of like him being a nice kid and then him being bullied, you know, you can poke the bear for so long before something happens. And so, you do, so to Michael Myers, you do see him like a bit, and I do like that when they show him, like, he's like here in the camera, like, oh, he's here, or like the like the focus is like right here, and then he's like right there, like real quick, like you're looking, but you're like, ah. It's like the ghosts in Haunting of Hill House, where they could be like front and center in camera, but because of how like the focus and stuff, they could be like right there, but like I'm off camera and you'd be looking at me instead. I do like that they did that. I like that it initially didn't seem too Michael focused, as the previous movie was very heavily Michael focused. Like, evil dies tonight, evil die, like doing all that crazy shit. So, yeah, so the kid gets bullied, all that stuff, and this is the part, like, besides how the relationship, like, immediately, like, flourished into a thing so quick, this is the part that got me annoyed, which, like, we know this is the last, like, one of the saga, this current trilogy, but of the franchise kind of stuff, until probably the next one. But I was like, oh god, are we, like, passing the torch? Because this kid is also like a little weird and all that stuff, and he's being bullied, and you can tell he's like, I'm gonna seek my revenge. And then one night he, like, the it's crazy because he's like 21 years old, and there's like a bunch of what, 18-year-old, like 17, 18-year-olds bullying him. Like, bro, like, if a bunch of teenagers said something to me, I'm just like, I don't, I mean, I do get that the internet exists. I do have a bunch of teenagers yelling at me all the time, but I just don't care. Like, you know, like, oh, he slashed their tires and, you know, like, held a knife to them. I'm just like, I don't care, man. Like, I'm old. I have a mortgage. You know, I have a mom to take care of. Like, I don't got time, you know, to be like, I will show you high school kids. Like, I'm in my 30s, you know? Anyway, so those four kids knock him over a bridge. He's like a little discombobulated. They're like, oh, we killed him, we killed him. And so they run away, and just so happens that Michael Myers has been living underneath a bridge inside like a sewer tunnel this entire time. So all 4 of these years after, like, he scurried away, he's just been bumming it out underneath there, which I have to say is a pretty good prime spot for a bum to be, because inside that tunnel, it's like he's got good shelter, you know, the other bum's got a tent, but he's just like in that like sewer hole. I mean, it obviously doesn't smell great, but really you're a bum, all that stuff, and you really think Michael like cares about the smell? Like he's been in like institutions his whole life, like, you know, very desensitized to many things. So the kid gets like pulled in there and he doesn't die. Pretty like, and so this is where it feels like the whole passing the torch thing, and that's where I got annoyed, because then this kid is like trying to be Michael, you know. He does work at a mechanics thing, so he has like the mechanics jumpsuit. So already I'm just like, no, I don't. I'm getting annoyed. I'm like, no, I don't want to pass the torch thing. I want this to end. I want this to end. I don't want it where it's like Michael is dead or something, and then it's like this new young hotness stabbing me. Like, no, why the fucking end? You told me it was gonna end. Why the fucking end? You know. So so then he's just like, you know, like, ooh, teach me your ways, you know, sensei kind of shit. And it's just like Michael gets like, oh, and I love that Michael's knife is like just rusted. Like the I follow the actor who plays the new grandpa Michael, and he showed the knife, and it's just like rust. It's just like tetanus, you know. It just starts stabbing away, stabbing away, stabbing away on people, and he's just like feeling. He's like, yeah, it's coming back, it's coming back, coming back. Because before he was kind of like hobbly and all that stuff, you know. But then he's like, wow, whoa, yeah, you know. So again, you initially feel like it's the pass the torch thing, and like I said, I was very annoyed and almost like, no, no, because so much of there was then like a good chunk of kills that you saw in the trailer, and it wasn't Michael's kills, it was this little shit's kills. I mean, granted, they were great kills, like the DJ where he was busted up and his like, bleh, tongue's on, he cut his tongue, or like when he finally got revenge on like those teenagers and like fucking stomped on this one girl's face and like fucking monkey wrenched another girl and fucked up the, you know, like, it's like great, great. These kills are great, the effects are great, but I wanted to be Michael, you know, like me, the purist, the Halloween purist, somehow, not really, you know, I was like, it's not the right killer. So I'm just like, oh god. And then there was like the conflict between like Laurie and her granddaughter. You know, the whole like, I love him, like very wow, very Disney princess, where it's like, Father, you don't understand, I love him kind of thing. And it's like, girl, come on, you know. And of course, like, you know, listen to Laurie Strode, she's been through it. But then she's like the granddaughter's like, no, I did it, but da. And I'm just like, no. I was like getting annoyed. We're like halfway through the movie, and I was like, oh my god, this is turning into like some stupid teen shit, even though they're all like grown ass adults. It's like turning into like some fucking like, you don't love him, like Romeo and Juliet kind of bullshit. It's like, oh, for fuck's sakes, you know. But finally, oh god, I'm shedding. I need to go to bed. Like a cat. There's hair everywhere. Alright, and then, so, finally, like, so this kid is just like, he snapped. He went from, like, good, awkward kid to something like, I want to be a cold-blooded killer like Michael. So he has his, like, so he has his freaking, you know, mechanics jumpsuit. Initially, he had his like scarecrow mask that he wore with like the girl, the granddaughter to a party, and then he like stole Michael's mask, you know, and is like trying to, you know, do what Michael does. And like I said, I'm like, it's not the same, it's not the same, you know. And I do now, because I'm done with the movie, I do like that the writers did that, where they're like, you think we're gonna pass the torch and this is going to be this kid's movie. Psych! You know, thank God. So, once the third act, cue the third act, like, you know, we all know it's going to be the end. So Laurie is like, hey, I like to, you know, she called on the phone. She's like, I like to, you know, report a suicide, you know, and she's like getting all her affairs together. And then you notice she's wearing like the same outfit as the first movie, the blue top and the pants and stuff. And I'm just like, what is this all about? You know? Oh, before I go further, the OG Michael Myers, Nick Castle, not the face. The face one is Tony Moran, and I met him or earlier this year, but the one who was more like the body Nick Castle, you see him in the party scene where he like flashes his, he was supposed to be the Flasher. He like opens up his jacket and it's like, look at these organs. And I remember I was like, oh, 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 oh. I was like, I know you, I know you. Anyway, back to where we were. So yeah, you think that Laurie's gonna commit suicide, and you're like, well, you it's understandable because it's like, well, her granddaughter's just not listening to her and just wants to run away with this guy that she literally just met. And of course, Laurie's like, well, I kind of set her up with the guy, and it's like, what did I do? And now he's become Michael, and no one wants to believe me that he's trying to be Michael and all that shit. So, I get it. Just like, you've gone through 40 years of this. I get it, And so, you just see splatter against the wall, and I remember being like, it's kind of orangey, and then the door whips open and it's like just pumpkin bits, and she goes, you didn't think I'd kill myself, bam bam, right on the guy, right on the babysitter guy, thank God. And then he's shot a couple of times, and then like Laurie's yelling at him, and it's like some stuff, and then he did the thing which I knew he was gonna do, which was like, if I can't have her like the granddaughter, no one can. Puts the knife in his neck, and I'm like, good, die, because I didn't like you. You know, I didn't even like it from the beginning. I was like, fine, he's just this character. Okay, I kind of feel bad for him because, accidental death kind of shit. But then I was just like, come on, dude. Like, one, you're gonna let a bunch of like high schoolers pick on you. Like, just ignore it. Like, move on. I get it. Like, as someone who's also been bullied their entire life, sometimes you just gotta fucking move on and pick your battles. Don't yell. Don't like stoop low and yell at some children. Go yell at a senator. You know what I mean? Do the good. Do the good. Like I did. Yell at a senator, And so he's bleeding out. Of course, the granddaughter comes home just as she pulls the knife out of his neck. So it looks like, again, now it's her turn for the accidental, well, I mean, this side's not really accidental, but for the whole, like, it looks like you killed him kind of thing. And of course, the granddaughter's like, what did you do? What did you do? Ah. And then, like fucking Michael Myers shows up, and it's like, actually, no. Wait, I think she ran away. She was upset. Yeah, she was like, oh, my grandma, it's crazy. So she runs away. So Laura's just left by herself. Michael shows up, and then Michael kills the kid. Like, the kid, like, with however much blood is coming out. Like, he had the strength to be like, no, Michael, don't take your mask. And Michael's like, you know what, you little shit? You just... And I was like, thank you. I was like, okay, now this movie's got me. I'm back, movie. No passing the torch, because you're annoying. You're not him. You'll never be him. He gets his mask back on. He's going, attacking Laurie. Laurie's just like, oh, hell to the no. And then it's just like, stab you here, stab you there. Just like, freaking, just like, she's got one of those like kitchen islands that is a cutting board, and so she's just like, he's just stuck there, knocks the fucking fridge on top of him so he can't move, and then she just opens her knife drawer and she's like, and a stab and a blah. And I'm glad she decided to like slit his throat, because she like stabbed him in the heart, then stabbed him like under the armpit, very vital places where you'll bleed out, and he's bleeding out. But then she removes his mask, and then is pretty much just like, he's dead. And then it's like, you're thinking, okay, the movie's over. But then they decide to be like, so that, they're just like, okay, Michael's dead. And then they're like, oh, and I was thinking to myself, like, they better like burn the body or something. Like, none of this like, we'll bury it, or whatever, or like the movie ends with like an autopsy table, and then like it's he sits up somehow. No. So they strap him to the roof of the granddaughter's car, and they just like kind of funeral procession, like, drive, and the entire town is out, in the middle of the night, and they go to the junkyard that guy was working at, and the entire time in the movie, whenever they showed the scrapyard, they always showed like the metal recycle thing, like the grinder, thing, where they're just throwing bits of car, and it's like the wood chipper, that's what it is, but the metal chipper thing. And so when you realize you're at the fucking junkyard, I was like, oh, they're gonna put him in the thing. And so they like freaking, like crowd surf him, like, through the crowd, throw him in. Laurie gets on the machine, like, granddaughter turns on the machine, and Laurie kicks him in, and he's just like goes into like a bajillion fucking pieces, and I was like, damn, his body folds in, the wrong way on itself, head crushes, great effects, but it's, they're done by the great effects dudes, that did all the other ones, so you knew it was gonna be good, but it's just like, all that stuff, and I was just like, wow, they just said, fuck that shit. They just said, you gone, you dead, bye. So I'm glad they did that. I'm glad they just kind of like, they did it that way. Ow. Because I remember even saying, like, if Michael does not, like, die in the last one, you know, for me, it was like, it's either Michael dies or Michael and Laurie dies, like, together. There's no way that, like, Laurie dies and Michael doesn't. I was like, no, that's not how you're gonna end it. And I'm glad they did it where Michael dies, Laurie's alive, she's fine, she's writing her memoir, she's writing her book, the whole, like, evil saga is done. The granddaughter leaves because she's, like, knowing that, the evil isn't there anymore, she doesn't really have to watch over grandma, and she can kind of, like, pursue her life now. Especially, can't be in that town anymore, because, she's like, I like being here, this is where my memories are at. Well, the guy you, like, quickly fell in love with decided to want to, like, murder your grandma, so, what? You know? But anyway, yes, so that was Halloween Ends, much better than the second one. I still like the first one a little bit better, but yeah, I I do enjoy this. Um, Everyone did great. Oh, I think I meant because I mentioned I met Tony Moran. I had met James. Was it James, Jude, Courtney, the new grandpa, uh, Michael Myers. I've met him before. Sweet, like both of them, just sweet men. I mean, all the slasher killers I've met so far are just like the sweetest people. Um, but yeah, so that was Halloween Ends. It is like almost 4:30 in the morning. I need to go to sleep. I have a lot of art to make, a lot of sleep to get. But yes, Halloween Ends. It's ended.